What are some solved mysteries? That's a pretty interesting story. Goes to show that not all disappearances involve foul play, but I would rather they be a live frown. Might want to add the car was submerged in a creek upside down and only found when water's lowered due to drought. Made it sound like a car was on the side of the road for 43 years and no one drove by. To think that you could crash your car and not be found for 40 years is kinda chilling. Especially given that folks were looking. Mark Felt was Deep Throat, a key source for the journalists that pursued the Watergate story. Met him once in the 80s, he was a connection through a business associate of my father's. When it came out that Mr. Felt was DT, my dad called to remind me of the dinner we had when I was a kid. I don't remember much other than the intimidating vibe. The type of guy who, even as until 8 years old, I didn't need to be told to mind my manners. I just did because he was scary. And his wife wore a hat with a fake bird in it. The missing feet murders for many years, human feet kept washing up on the shores near Seattle and Vancouver. A total of 21 were found. Naturally people thought there was a murderer afoot, and their modus operandi was to cut their victims' feet off before disposing of the body in the ocean. Turns out many of the remains were deemed as suicides. Turns out when you jump off one of the many bridges Seattle and Vancouver has to offer, your body decomposes, and your limbs detach. The foam and floaty material in the victims' shoes ensured their feet would float and get caught in tidal currents, this dispersing the detached feet nicely. Case closed. Wasn't it also discovered, based on the type of shoe, that some of the feet had potentially been attached to victims of the 2004 South Asian tsunami? I remember reading that one pair of Nikes was only produced for the South Asian market, and therefore it was surmised that some of the feet originated across the Pacific. And the reason it's happening now and never did before is because the general material of the foam stays intact longer than older shoes and preserves the flesh better. The bloop TL, Doctor in 1997 a really weird and loud noise was detected underwater and everyone was all WTF was that? In 2012 it was determined it was an iceberg breaking and or rubbing against the seabed. Now if only we could find an explanation for the wow signal. It's still super creepy to me, no matter what it is. Memories of Murder, a movie based on true story about South Korea's first serial murderer. A confession was made in 2019 after more than 30 years. He was already in jail for raping and killing his sister-in-law. Go check the movie, it's a masterpiece. Benjamin Kyle. Man found beaten behind a Burger King with severe amnesia. It was a fascinating mystery until it was solved, then it was kind of sad. He had made TV appearances, had a couple of AMAs on Reddit, but no one could identify him. When his identity was discovered, William Burgess Powell, there was still a 20-year gap in his life from 1984 to 2004. There's no record he had done anything. He had distanced himself from his family and had no friends, which is why no one recognized or identified him from his TV appearances. I remember some of his AMAs. So fascinating. How was his identity discovered? Here's one of his AMAs. The Solway spaceman in 1964, Jim Templeton, a fireman from the English city of Carlisle, was spending an afternoon out with his family when he snapped a photograph of his young daughter without much thought. But when he got home and had the film developed, he noticed what has now become known as the Solway spaceman. The photo shows what many people say is a person in some form of spacesuit. Kodak even analyzed the photo and their experts said it was authentic, lending to the spaceman theory. The spaceman was his wife with her back to the camera. He was only able to see 70% of the frame and didn't realize his wife was in the background of the picture. And it took nearly how long? For his wife to realize, oh yeah, I was behind. This is the kind of shit paranormal mysterious are made of. Is it an alien? Is it a ghost? Maybe a demon. It's just your wife, moron. 1947 and British South American Airways aircraft named Stardust disappeared. Its last message was simply Stendek. After an exhausting search, no trace of the aircraft was found. For years conspiracy theories and talk of alien abduction by wackos circulated. Till 1998, when mountain climbers on a remote mountain found an engine, pieces of metal, and clothing at the bottom of a glacier on the side of Mount Tupungato. Turns out the aircraft got caught flying the wrong way in the jet stream while it was flying at night and using a system of timing when to start their descent. Being in the jet stream reduced their airspeed in relation to the Earth and they smacked themselves straight into the side of a mountain, after which an avalanche covered the wreckage. The wreckage took decades to flow down the side of the mount with the glaciers. The glacier preserved the wreck so well that 50 years later the recovery team found identifiable remains, personal items, and could read serial numbers on the engines. Amazing, one of the landing gear tires was still inflated, and that teams continued to visit the site for periodically as more of the aircraft, cargo, and remains of passengers are still emerging from the ice. But what is Stendek? What's the purpose of the appendix really? It keeps your good bacteria safe. Dumbass appendix tried to kill me. While it doesn't give us who the Zodiac Killer is, just recently his most infamous 340 cipher was solved after 51 years. According to Oranchak and team, the message reads, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show," which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise. Death article about who did it and how. Weird related story. My husband and I just started getting Hunter Killer a few months ago. We did our first one that included a cipher, so we started talking about ciphers in general. He brought up how they had never figured out the Zodiac Killers, so we looked it up to learn more. 20 minutes earlier, the news story had broken that they finally cracked it. One of the wildest coincidences of my life. El Dorado, or the Lost City of Gold, turned out to be a mistranslation. It was just the name of some guy that got mistranslated to the name of a city. Sounds like exactly what someone who is on the trail would say. Was he made of gold? The Andreen MacDonald case. She and her husband Andre, yes, Andreen and Andre, originally were from Jamaica. They moved up to my town in Texas where Andre was Air Force and Andreen was a bodybuilding business owner. Andre was pretty jealous that Andreen was more successful and was constantly begging/demanding that she make him co-owner of her company. She always said no. One day he had it, and did away with her. The gym that she frequented, every single morning, got concerned when she stopped showing up. She was very close with the ladies that she worked out with, and even gave them a key to her house. She told them that if she ever went missing, that her husband probably did it, and they knew he had an attitude. So one day while Andre was out, the ladies went to check on Andreen. Her car was there, her wallet was there, but she wasn't. They found blood and hair in her bathroom. That's when cops were called. Cops showed up when Andre was home and asked about Andreen. He said she was in the hospital. They asked him, if she's in the hospital, how come her wallet's here? He responded simply, talk to my lawyer. They got a warrant and were able to search the house further. Saw more leftover evidence in the bathroom, and evidence of clothes had been found burned in the fire pit in the backyard. But no body. So all they could do was charge him with a missing persons deal. Andre was super snarky about it too. How he'd be proven innocent. How the cops would never catch on. Little did he realize how loved Andreen was. And how much Texas ranchers hate corrupt and snarky individuals. Crowds gathered daily and were given permission to sweep over ranchers' land for any sign of Andreen's body. Just as crowds started feeling defeated, and Andre started to see hope of being released, a rancher was scoping his field. He had heard coyotes out and went to see what could have enticed them. Sure enough, he found human bones, later identified as Andreen. So yeah, proper charges were able to be filed. Apparently he killed her in front of their autistic non-speaking 6-year-old daughter. The guy is pure evil. I'm so glad they were able to solve this and charge that guy. I can't imagine what it feels like to be in a relationship where it is so plausible that your spouse might kill you that you tell people if anything ever happens to you. He did it. I skimmed your comment too quickly the first time and invented a story where the wife is missing and the husband is like she's in the hospital and nobody believes him. Then weeks later she is released from the hospital and was never missing at all. I like my version better. Frown. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.